Smart people are very good at explaining why things are the way they are. They're very, very good at it. And sometimes that explanation is the exact thing that's standing between you and a breakthrough. Good morning and welcome to a strong start. I'm super excited to have you here. And we're broadcasting live right now inside of our Clients Over Chaos community, as well as over the Instagram. Earthquake there. Hello and good morning. I'm so glad that you're here. And we're going to get started today talking about this one thing that when you nail it, everything else gets a whole lot easier. So goodness, I'm really excited to be here with you today. I have had a great start to the morning. I hope you have as well. I hope you had a beautiful Easter weekend if you happen to celebrate that. Good morning, good morning. Oh my gosh, I'm glad you're here. Okay, so let's get this party on the road. We've been talking for the past few weeks about how do we get unreasonable traction in our action. So I've been walking you through step by step our Let's Launch formula, which is exactly how coaches, experts, consultants, agency owners can more proactively and on purpose grow their business. So whether you are starting at the very beginning and you're enrolling your first few clients, or whether you maybe had a strategy that stopped working in the past few years, this is going to be applicable to you. And I know it has been applicable to me. So hello, welcome. I'm glad you are here. Hello, hello, hello. Okay, y'all. So today we're going to talk about the thing that smart people miss. And there's a very, okay, let's do this. I love that, Kathy. Thank you so much. And gosh, I'm glad you're here because I just remembered in just over 1 week, on April 14th, I'm looking over at my calendar, y'all. In a world of AI, I really appreciate a paper calendar. So I can't show you, but it's like anchored to the wall. I have a paper calendar that reminds me of everything that's upcoming. And boy, that has been super, super helpful. So April 14th, 1 o'clock p.m. Central, we're going to be getting together with the First 5 Club. So whether you're looking for your first or next 5 clients, make sure you DM me the word club if you're not already a member, and we'll make sure that you can join us for a live interactive coaching call. I'm really excited about this one, and it's just around the corner. Okay, so I know, I love paper calendars. I think there's something about slowing the world down a little bit and moving it into ink and paper that makes a huge, huge difference. Given that you love paper so much, where are my note takers at? Let me know if you're going to be taking notes today, because today, here's what we're talking about. We are talking about why smart coaches are often the last to see this really important thing. And look, what I'm about to tell you may feel a little bit uncomfortable. I know when I realized it, I was uncomfortable, but I want you to stay with me because this is one of the most important things that I have discovered on my journey as an entrepreneur, and something that's been reinforced again and again by entrepreneurs that are way more successful than me. All right, so I'm not just talking about an idea that everybody knows. This is something that I notice is really separating, because here's what I didn't know. Here's what I didn't realize. Often the people who are struggling the most with building a great business happen to be the smartest people in the room. There is that, they happen to be the ones that maybe they got the really great job. They had an awesome career because they were bright and intelligent. They worked hard and they got all the things. Sometimes they're just really book learned. They're people who actually read books, with, those paper things that have the words in them. I'm just kidding. But, they tend to be well read. They tend to be people who go to class, who attend the seminars, right? And they tend to be the most stuck. And yeah, 10 pages a day at least. I know. So it's like, if you're a little bit of a nerd, I love you. It's my people, right? Because I love knowing how the world works. I love testing my ideas. I get it. So I do consider myself to be a little bit smart. Maybe not like the smartest in all the land, but I have all those same habits, right? Those same stuck habits. This is wild because intelligence can actually be one of the biggest blinders that there is. And we know this because how many smart people do you know who work really hard? And they are a hard worker. They get up early, they stay up late, they work the weekends, they're hyper available, right? But like even outside of the entrepreneurial world, how many smart friends do you have that have been struggling to maybe get promoted? Or they find themselves kind of floating between different companies. And then as entrepreneurs, how many smart friends do you have who seem to just keep on starting over? And maybe they're starting over a new business idea, or they're starting over a new way to grow their business, but it's like they're always in this perpetual startup mode. They never seem to get traction. And what I really want you to hear, because I know I needed to hear this, is that it's not because you don't work hard. It isn't even because you don't have the ability. We're going to unpack today how smart people stay stuck. And we're going to not only unpack the why, we're also going to unpack how do we move through it? How do we move past it? Because like smart people should succeed too, don't you think? Beyond school grades, beyond kind of what the old ideas of what successful were. And here's one of the things that I didn't realize until I did. Smart people are very good at explaining why things are the way they are. They're very, very good at it. And sometimes that explanation is the exact thing that's standing between you and a breakthrough. So we're going to look at what maybe you're not seeing and why you haven't been able to see it until, of course, now. And look, building a business is a process. All right. So whatever I may reveal today that makes you kind of blush or choke up a little bit or go, it's okay, right? Everything we're talking about, absolutely solvable. I've had to shift a lot of habits myself, a lot of thinking habits, a lot of doing habits, and it all lives in this same context of the Let's Launch formula, because how many of you have a friend who knows exactly what to do to grow their business, but like actually down to the letter, knows exactly what to do. They know they need to know their numbers. They understand those pieces. We've been talking about that for the past 2 sessions. And yet they struggle with the belief that they will be successful. Not you, obviously, but like a friend who has that. It's almost like I'm thinking about Ratatouille, the Disney movie, and it's like that rat Remy, that was cooking. It's like him walking around with a whole bunch of recipes, but never actually getting the opportunity to cook. That's what it's kind of like. So if that was a little too Disney for you, let me know that too. But the thing is that every coaching business, every business actually, like any business, is being steered quietly by the beliefs of the founder, of the CEO. And if you don't fully understand the beliefs that you have, then it is very difficult to address the patterns and the habits, the routines and the decisions that you may be making because of those beliefs. If this is tracking, shout a Y in the chat if you're like, yeah, okay, I got it. So the thing is that I think coaches especially are at a bit of a disadvantage when it comes to identifying their own beliefs, which is nuts, right? Because we literally have specific training on how to identify beliefs. But the challenge is that if you're journaling about it, or even if you brought it up in a coaching session, the ones that are operating in the background are the ones that you never thought to question. And that's what makes being coached by someone else so powerful and important. And not just anybody else, someone who has a different perspective, a different lived experience. And I think this is why we can't just coach. We also need mentorship. We also need training. We also need accountability partners, right? We need a team around us to really operate at our best. And that's maybe tough because I think coaching sometimes gets oversold as the only solution to all things. And it's a powerful ingredient in transformation and progress, but it's not everything. So we're going to talk now about the Believe It formula. So here's my very sophisticated AI drawn image, Amanda Intelligence drawn image. We've talked about you need to just do it. You need to get into action. You need to do what matters. We've talked about in a coaching and services business, this is meeting people, having a conversation with them, inviting them into a deeper conversation when you identify you can help so that you can coach them. So meet, talk, fit, coach, meet, talk, fit, coach, meet, talk, fit, coach. And you know what? When I started my business back in 2017, that was plenty. That was lots. That was all I needed to do. It's a little different a decade later. A decade later, we've got AI. A decade later, social media has almost an entirely different tone. A decade later, things have changed quite a bit in the marketplace that blindly meeting people, blindly talking to people is not working the way it once did. It still works, right? A blind squirrel will still find a nut. But if you want a sustainable, profitable business over the long term, you're going to need a couple other ingredients. Let me tell you what they are. So we have the tracking, right? So when you track how many people you've met, how many conversations have you had with the people that you met, how many people that you've talked to are escalating into a fit conversation, and then how many people are actually coaching with you. If you do not measure your action, if you don't track what's happening, then you're doomed to repeat the cycle, right? Shout a D in the chat if you've written that down. You're doomed to repeat the cycle. So if the cycle is getting you mediocre results, the only thing that can happen if you change nothing is worse results. Why? Because the world keeps getting more complicated. Right? The conditions are changing and evolving. And if you're not tracking, you're going to miss it. You're going to miss the changes and the signals that change was a coming. So that's why it's so important to track. The third piece that we're focusing on today is actually your belief system. So your belief system is the collection of thoughts that you hold true. Shout a T in the chat if you're like, okay, yeah. Beliefs are things that you believe are true. We don't tend to hold beliefs that we don't think are true. That's why we believe them, right? And so it's a very emotional experience. It's not as logical as you would think. A lot of our beliefs are encoded from years ago and never questioned. And you can kind of think of it like your operating system. It's the way your brain just sort of processes data and interacts with the world. All right, so that's the collection of your belief system. Now, there's a lot of different kinds of beliefs. There's the empowering beliefs. So empowering beliefs are the thoughts you have that tend to cause you to take action, tend to activate an agency, tend to have high self-trust. Those are empowering beliefs. Disempowering beliefs are the repeated thought patterns that we have that make us believe that we are less than. And so anytime you've ever said to yourself, you're not smart enough, or you're not kind enough, or you're not patient enough, or you're not energetic enough, all of those things are disempowering beliefs. There's, I would say, another separate category of limiting beliefs. So limiting beliefs are the beliefs that we have that limit our success. And they're limiting, like by definition. So if you believe that, this is a big one, if you believe that women aren't as good at business as men are, if there's a part of you that believes that, and you happen to be a woman, woo, right? That's going to affect your decisions, right? Shout a Y in the chat if you totally get that. Here's the magic of it, is that you can change beliefs you know about. You can change beliefs that you know about. And that is the power of coaching. That's the power of what I try to do with every single one of these lives. This is what I do in my group coaching programs, is I am intentionally engaging you in a conversation that is designed to challenge what you think may be true. And boy, oh boy, it can be very hard because it's almost like I'm coming to work every day, starting a fight, engaged in conflict, right? And I've gotten actually really good at arguing with people. But the thing is I'm arguing for your power. I'm arguing for your success. I'm arguing for your possibility. And when I was a new coach, I was like so scared to get into any kind of a discussion debate with anybody because I was afraid, and maybe tell me if this has been true for you. I was afraid that if I disagreed with you, that perhaps you would not like me anymore. Has anybody actually felt that? I know I've certainly felt that, especially in this crazy age of social media where everybody's drawing lines here and there and everywhere. And it's like, I'm pro this, I'm anti that, I'm with these people and I'm against those people. And like, there's all this like really heavy tribalism going on in our modern world. And you know, that fear of like, what if you, person, finds out that I, different person, have another perspective that's not the exact same as yours? Will you like me anymore? Will you like me anymore if I think differently and I believe differently? And one of the big challenging bits is, of course, letting go of my attachment to that. I call those OPOs, other people's opinions. On one hand, you need to be receptive and open to OPOs, but I think it's a really important thing to be very careful who you're receiving feedback from. Some of the people that are offering you feedback, it's to help you stay in alignment with who they believe you are. And if who they believe you are is different than who you believe you are, that could cause a problem, yes? Right? Shout a Y in the chat. If who they believe you could be is lesser than who you believe you could be, that could be a problem. Right? Shout a Y in the chat if you identify that as well. So this episode is really about turning on the lights. And, you know, one of the most humbling ideas that I have personally encountered in growing this business is to stop assuming I already understand how I think. Stop assuming that I already understand how I think. And this is tough because I have a pretty robust personal growth practice. I mean, like I journal daily. I am a big fan of growth work, and I've really invested in learning how to grow myself. So it's very easy to believe that you then already know everything there is to know about yourself. That, my friend, is a fixed mindset. You don't know yourself, not as much as you think you know yourself. And here, let me like really unpack this. I do know my preferences. So like, I know I don't like to eat beets, just as an example. I got a big problem with beets. So I don't shop for beets. I don't buy beets. I don't cook beets. I don't want beets. My behavior is very much dictated by the preference around beets. And I'm curious, do you have like a food aversion, something that you don't really love? And you can see like how your behavior would modify around that thing. Oh, you're not a big fan of eggs. Okay, cool. Don't have breakfast in my house. But you can see though, right? The aversion causes a change in behavior. Well, that aversion is just it's a preference you prefer, right? But that doesn't tell you really who you are at a deeper level. That's just a preference. So we have to interpret some sort of a meaning, I guess, around that preference. And then we can trick ourselves into thinking, well, I know myself so well. And it turns out beets are gross, supplements are fine. Got it. Because you can bypass the whole eating them part. That's so good. So my point is you do probably know your preferences very well, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you can see what you believe to be true about the world. So average coaches and average business owners, I would say, are walking around saying, well, because I've done the coaching, I've done the programs, I've done the certification, I've done all these things, check the box, check the box, check the box, check the box. I know what I'm thinking. And they spend most of their time trying to clear negative beliefs, right? So for example, whenever I do a high performance session around influence, especially a group session, very often my clients will come back and say, I need to influence myself better. And when we unpack it a little bit, the thing that they're working on the most is like, I want to have kind words for myself. I want to say nice things to myself, and I want to encourage myself to do the things that I find myself rejecting, right? And the thing is they're engaged in this fight against preferences. I prefer not to get up early. I prefer not to go to the gym. I prefer not to eat nutritiously. I prefer not to control my time. I prefer. And they're just like in this battle over preferences. And I get it, because like those aversions can be super strong. They can feel very real. But that's not the same thing as uncovering a limiting belief. Can y'all track that? The difference between like really doing deeper work on what do you believe to be true versus wrestling with a preference. Shout a Y in the chat if you're getting this distinction. It's small, but it's mighty. This is a really, really big one. The reason it's such a problem that we stay at this level of preference is that we don't discover what's authentically holding us back. Like very often, if you can name it, you can claim it. But if you are not able to name because you don't yet know that you believe this thing, it's very hard to claim it. Yeah. So we're going to get there, okay? Coaches who scale tend to treat their own belief system like data, and it's something that can be examined. It can be tested against reality, and it can be deliberately reinforced when it's working. If you're endlessly battling a preference, like your preferences are not very likely to just change. You're not likely to just like wake up one morning and be like, you know what, I just realized that I'm an early bird. I'm not going to wake up one day and go, you know what, after a lifetime of not liking beets, today's the day my preference has changed. That's an unlikely scenario. What's more likely is you're going to realize, wow, I thought this was a real one from my business. I thought branding wasn't really all that important. So I didn't really pay attention to it. And when that belief was challenged and it kind of surfaced, it's like, wow, I didn't actually know what branding was. And when I understood what branding was, I was like, holy cow, I've been branding this whole time. And because I questioned the belief around the branding, it empowered me to decide a new thing, because what I believed to be true previously, branding doesn't matter. I challenged it and I was able to go, oh, branding very much matters. Let me take a look at the most successful businesses out there and what is something they have that other people don't have. And I used to believe branding was about the color palettes that you used or the font choices that you made, which you can express brand through those things for sure. But that's not branding. That's the aesthetic expression of a brand. And when I got like deeper, I realized that some of the things that I thought were true were just objectively not true. And that is incredibly powerful. You know, the thing about preferences and negotiating preferences is they're true. Like, who's going to argue with me about the beet thing, right? Me saying that I like beets, don't like beets, that's not really a refutable thing. But someone could and did present the case for what makes building a brand really important, not just the marketing, not just the direct response techniques. And so then I changed my mind. And guess what? When I changed my mind, changed my brand, right? I changed what I emphasize. I changed what I am intentional about saying and associating with. And I started to change, like, not associating certain other things. And I started to be more intentional about my brand. Can you guys track? Like, is this making a whole lot of sense? I know it's really nuanced. This is a very nerdy one. So do slow me down and ask questions as you need. So if you treat your belief system more like just data, it's information, your brain's a big old computer, it's got programming, and you can challenge the programming instead of just staying in the same cycle of reviewing the same preferences over and over again, you can really, really grow. I found this quote as I was prepping for today, and I really love it. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And that was Carl Jung. I love that. I love that. It's so true, isn't it? Yeah. So here's some of the things I found along the way when it comes to belief. The first thing is that it is really, really tough to assess your own belief pattern from inside them. So when you're living that belief, it is really, really tough to see what it is. It's like if you were a fish and you're like swimming through water, are you really going to know what water is? Because it's just everywhere. You know, with each of my kids, I remember them figuring out what air is and that air is all around, because they just sort of didn't even bother to think about it until one day they were like, wait, and then they realized, oh my gosh, you know, there's air all around me all the time. That's so interesting. So I think one of the biggest myths there is out there, especially for people who have trained as coaches or had a lot of exposure to personal growth and development, the myth is that the coaches with the fewest limiting beliefs are the ones who win at life. And you can totally see this in amateur coach conversations. Like it's almost this competition to see who has the fewest limiting beliefs. Have y'all seen that competition play out? Shout a Y in the chat if you ever have. The thing is that it's the coaches that are able to notice their beliefs, and that's what coaching, journaling, and trusted feedback is so powerful for, is being able to actually identify what it is that you really do think. I think the belief that's probably costing you the most is probably the one that you don't know about yet. I know. Like, what an inconvenient idea. Such an inconvenient idea. So most coaches have done work on like really obvious stuff. Usually they've done work on things like fear of failure, right? Shout me, that's me if you've ever worked on that one. The fear of success. You've probably had a conversation or 17,000 on imposter syndrome, right? Those are the beliefs that make it to the surface because they're really dramatic and there's a lot of social content that talks about them. So you're basically joining a conversation already in progress and it's like, oh, I have that too, and it's super obvious. The ones that are quietly running your business tend to be the ones that are subtler and generally more accepted. So things like, I need to have everything figured out before I put myself out there. Like I need to get everything all figured out first, right? Shout a Y in the chat if you may or may not have a friend who's definitely wrestled with that one. I know another one that holds people back a lot is the belief that other people, like if I was good, then people would just find me. If I was good at coaching or good at what I did, if I was smart enough, then, or pretty enough, or young enough, or experienced enough, then people would just find me, right? Like people should just find me. So let me know if you've got any friends who, and you know how they express this one is usually like, yeah, they say like, I need to be out there more. They say like, oh, I don't want to have to market. I just want clients. Because they believe that one, marketing is really hard. They believe that marketing is unlearnable. They believe they have to change who they are at a soul level in order to be successful. They believe like, and you asked such a good question here. You're like, who doesn't believe that? Successful people. The answer is successful people. Successful people do not believe that in order to get business, they just have to shine brighter. Successful people don't believe that marketing is hard. Successful people don't believe that it's hard to sell. They've worked on those beliefs. And this is what I'm talking about. Like the invisible beliefs are the things that you accept as like true. And even if you've maybe identified on a surface layer that they exist, you find reinforcement in your peers that everybody thinks this, so it's okay for me to keep thinking this. And that's what keeps us stuck. That's it. Nails it. So smart. I love it. So I think the thing is that those beliefs are the most dangerous because they feel the most reasonable, because you have a lot of peers who believe the exact same things and everybody's acting accordingly. So one of the scariest things that I had to do for the sake of an improved belief system was I needed to make a choice to break away from the pack. And that was so scary because, to be very honest, I didn't have the results to back myself. And that's what makes belief the third leg of this triangle, is you need it before the actions create results. And so I had to make this tough call. I was like, I need to stop rehashing the same things over and over again with my friends who have similar levels of failure and success. Like we're just sort of bobbing at the same level here. And I need to decide that I am going to perform at a different level, which meant I had to leave the pack. I had to stop spending quite as much time with my old friends doing old things. And I needed to seek new mentorship, new friendships, new support system. And what was so crazy scary about it is, like I said, I didn't already have the results to back up that step forward. I had the same results as anybody else. So, the old beliefs of like, who do you think you are? Loud, so loud. My brain was just like, don't do it. You're going to be alone. Don't do it. You're going to fail. Don't do it. Your friends are going to, your friends are going to watch for your failure, and then they're going to cackle with glee when you come crashing down to earth. Right? So I am not suggesting that you need to be conceited and you need to be gross or you need to condemn your friends. Don't judge your friends. That sucks, right? Like, we don't want to do that. But if you yourself are recognizing like, wow, I need to level up, I need to approach a new level here, the only person who's going to really be in your corner at first is you, right? Because you're the one who has to motivate. You're the one who has to decide that you're going to operate at that different level and in that different space. And I mentioned to you earlier that, you know, average coaches, average entrepreneurs, average business, average people, they tend to, even if they're aware of personal growth and development, get in the game of trying to eliminate all of the limiting beliefs. They're like, I just wish I didn't have these beliefs anymore. And the truth is that the very successful people, they stop worrying so much about eliminating the negativity, and they focus more on reinforcing the positive, reinforcing the empowering, reinforcing the things that build you. So, for example, deliberately building up beliefs that drive growth. And it could be things like, I can create results for my clients. I deserve to be paid fairly for my expertise. The clients are actively looking for people like me right now. Like, these are all really powerful, helpful, hopeful beliefs. And so it's not really just the affirmation and screaming into the mirror like, I'm $1 million coach, when you've never sold anything. The most empowering affirmations that you can have are the ones where you do actually have a bit of evidence to support. So if you've ever seen someone hire a coach, even if it was never you, you could probably get behind the belief of people are looking for someone like me, right? Yeah. It's this deliberate practice around choosing the lens through which you're going to look through the world. So coming back to the triangle, it's this deliberate practice of choosing that you're going to believe that the action you take matters. You're going to choose that you can keep up with something as simple as tracking your days. You're going to choose to believe that it matters that you pursue your goals. And when you get evidence for it, great, use the evidence. Use the evidence. As soon as you get it, use it. And that's one of the reasons that I have the practice of asking people, what is a 5-second win? What's a decision you made? What's an action you took? What's a result that we're celebrating? Because most people, they crash through life and they get what they want, or they do the discipline thing, or they make the hard choice and they don't celebrate it. They don't integrate, they don't pull in to their belief system, I'm someone who can choose to do hard things. And because they don't integrate that into their identity, what happens is a really hard thing, a real hard thing, shows up one day, knocks at the door, busts through like the Kool-Aid man. Hey, I'm here to mess your life up, right? And if you haven't positively reinforced your identity as being someone who can handle challenge, someone who can deal with emergencies, someone who can do all of these things, if you haven't integrated that into the core of your identity, and instead you keep reinforcing this idea, I wish I was better by getting rid of the stuff that was ugly. If you just put all your energy into wishing you were someone else, when something bad happens, you have that to work with. You're like, well, now a bad thing happened, and now I still wish I was someone else, and I wish I was someone else without this problem. Is this tracking and making sense, you guys? Belief is insanely important. It's insanely important. And something that I realized, honestly, it was a few years ago, but it took me some time and some courage to really name it, is coaches give themselves permission to stop pursuing a better understanding of how they think because they get qualified. It's because you got the certification. It's because you have the accolades. It's because you've earned the degree. It's because you've done all these things. And because you've done all these things, so often a very smart person can weaponize the things that are happening in their life, both to them and for them, because they're not really doing the deeper work that's going to reinforce who they need to be at that next level. So let me know what you thought about today's sesh. This was a fun one to pull together to really, think through myself. And here's a little thing you can try. Try to take out, well, you can probably do this part. Take out a piece of paper. You don't have to try. You can just do it. Grab a piece of paper and finish this sentence 3 times without overthinking it. Okay, so here's the sentence. The reason my business isn't growing faster is. The reason my business is not growing faster is. Write it down 3 times. And whatever comes out, that's a belief. That's a belief. So, I've done this exercise before and I was like, well, the reason my business isn't growing is because I don't wear enough makeup. Literally wrote that down once. The reason my business is not growing is because I'm 100 pounds overweight. I've written that down too. The reason my business isn't growing is because AI is available, right? So whatever the rationale, the reason is, write it down. Shout out 3 in the chat if you're like, okay, I got it. That's a belief. Okay? Whatever you wrote down, that's a belief. Now ask yourself, is it true? Or does it simply feel like it could be true? What evidence do you have that reinforces that idea? Is it a fact? And is it an always true fact? Or is it maybe an assumption or an interpretation? Right? Okay, so I'm hearing in the chat, I love this. Thank you for playing. I don't make enough calls and I don't see people and I don't follow up. Okay, is that always 100% true of the reason? Right? Is that that's your opinion and perhaps your preference, but do you have data that says for this new business, if I reach out, then this will happen? And the answer may be, yes, I do. Okay, great. Awesome. Right? I would also encourage to ask more questions about what is the reason I'm not doing the thing that I have identified, right? If you don't have all your ratios, you still are working in assumption land. So we want to keep taking action. We want to keep tracking that action. And we need to be aware of where we may have beliefs around friction, right? So something I'm going to share with the First 5 Club is I'm going to share with you how to use your information with AI to help you find the true bottleneck, because I promise whatever you're coming up with is still probably preference related, not necessarily the core real bottleneck, right? So here's what I want you to really think about today. Is slowing you down is probably not the fact you suck. It's probably not your technology gaps. It's probably not your networks, probably not your nerdiness, not probably your aesthetics, your age, your gender, all the different things that we attribute. Those are rational explanations, not necessarily objective truth. And objective truth is super, super challenging to determine. That's why we have science. That's why you can have so many different studies looking at the same questions over and over and over and over again. Because if it was as straightforward as just proving it, then we wouldn't need that, right? So the other thing I would really strongly encourage is get into a coaching container. If you're not in the Experts Network already, get in here, right? Shout out Expert if you want to hear more. We now have new financing option available, which is super cool. So you may be able to join us for a fraction of the typical payments if you qualify for the financing. So again, just send me a DM with the word expert. My Instagram is the Amanda Kaufman, and that's 1 F, 1 M, 1 N, the Amanda Kaufman. And you can ask me for more information about the network, and I will be happy to share that with you. And if you're qualified to be in the network, you can apply. And like I said, we've got different options for financing available now, which is super, super cool. So now that you've finished this, if you're still in study mode, I've got another video for you that's pretty awesome. Last week, we talked about data. We talked about if you're making business decisions without tracking particular information, make sure you watch this video so that you know what matters the most for any business that's under 6 figures. All right. I see that. I'll send you a message, Debbie. Thank you so much for being here. All right, y'all, have a great day. Next week, we're going to continue our journey together, and we are going to be talking about how to stop running your business on willpower, okay? Or won't power, whatever the case may be for you. But we're going to get you out of this like grinding willpower problem. And we're going to do it next week, 10 a.m. Central. Tell your friends they can come join us for absolutely nothing. It's completely free at nextnumber5clients.com. That's nextnumber5clients.com. I hope to see you next week. We'll see you soon.